as an industry, we are the first to jump on new technologies, and it seems only appropriate that we continue to do so. So one of the big elements of blockchain is sort of understanding what we're talking about. And so I wanted to go into a little bit of the history. And really what we have is a system that was born in 1989. It's only 33 years old, so it's just getting going. And Web 1.0 is, if you guys remember, Netscape and American Online, it was centralized. There was a few gatekeepers. The way it worked was they wanted to curate everything in sort of their little web page, and then you would go to that web page, and then you would click on the information you had, and they would try to curate everything. And the demand was so big that it became very difficult, and so we ended up moving from there. But it was not democratic. If someone wanted, if AOL decided that they wanted to change something, there was no discussion about that. There was really very little ownership of systems. AOL and people like that, Netscape, Google, they wanted to own all of it. And it was very curated and limited. So then Web 2.0 is where we are today. We're in the transition of getting out of Web 2.0. But it's very democratic. It's got a free market, and it is global, right? But there's still a lot of gatekeepers. Google is still a major gatekeeper. Facebook, all these different places. And what we end up is very large disparities. These systems are very much monopolies, or what you would call, just monopolies of control. And if you want to do advertisement, you've got to do it through these gatekeepers. And then the development of these subscription models. When we started talking about Web 3.0, it's really the beginning of all the things that are built off of these blockchain technology. So when Bitcoin started, it was written as a white paper, and people started to learn from that and say, okay, well, maybe we can use this and start attaching things other than just making it a cryptocurrency. And that's really where all of this new growth is happening. And we can talk about coins, and we can talk about valuations and all those things, but to tell you the truth, that's not as exciting, and it's not really the future. There's going to be a battleground in there. You're going to see certain coins and certain tokens sort of be successful, but they're going to be based off of their ability to provide service. But one of the great things about Web 3.0 is that it's more democratic. You're going to be able to build systems that are censor-proof. You're going to have automation. There's going to be things like you can get paid by the hour, but actually get paid in your wallet for that hour that you were working. So you can literally be walking. You can literally get paid by the minute. So you can see you could pull up something on one of your apps, and you can get your payroll could be showing literally by the minute of your income, and that money could be spent elsewhere through automated systems. But it also eliminates gatekeepers. When you start to have the apps that you own yourself, you end up having more control, because when you go back to Web 1.2, you gotta remember there was a subscription models. And so what they wanted to do is they wanted to be able to have control over that. And so you pay to use that service. But Web 3.0 is going to push outside of that, and you're going to see a lot more and more of that. And you're going to see financing. You're already seeing financing through that way. And of course, it's going to be borderless, which is, I think, a lot of people are very excited about. So today, this is just my opinion of where we're at with 3.0. 90% of the financial infrastructure is already set. And what I mean by that is that they've done Bitcoin's over 10 years old. I mean, I don't know if people realize that, but Bitcoin is 10 years old. It is a well-established, significant asset, and it's only getting more and more significant over time. And there might be more coins, but really the system is set. People are using the algorithms, they're copying, pasting, they're not building anything particularly new in that realm. All the new work is happening also in what I would call the 10% element, which is the right over here, the interconnective infrastructure. And those are all the cross chains. And I'll give you a couple of examples of that. But Once the chains that everyone's spending a lot of money and time developing, that financial infrastructure becomes integrated. And one of the beautiful things that we are able to witness in this is that it's actually it's a iteration of the real world. So when you look at third world countries, first world countries, you look at the West, what you see is a system. The roads are nice, the electricity is on most of the time. You can get a loan, you have credit cards, you go to the stores, there's shelves are stocked. You have a system that is interflowing and seamless, and that's the physical world that is built on the financial system. If the financial system isn't really, really solid, you can't do the rest of those things. And you can see that in the third world countries because there's too much corruption here or there. And as a result, they can't build an infrastructure for the financial system to build roads and build developments for homes or other kinds of systems. And so it's a lot harder to finance those problems. Well, you can now start to see the use of blockchain technology to start financing those third world countries, and you're going to see it, and it's already exploding. Cardano is huge in the African countries and growing ever more. Tron is another infrastructure or ecosystem that is growing in Asia, and of course Bitcoin and Ethereum is really connected to them. But we're really only about 10%. I keep on hearing the dots here, so I'm going to let me in. Oh, no, don't remove. Admit. And so there's a lot of growth there. I think we still have another 90% of growth before it's going to be well established. And again, that last 10% after the financial infrastructure is still going to, it's going to take time. But the functionality of the ecosystems where businesses and governments are using it is really only at that 1%. And that's really where we're touching. And again, that means the Web 3.0 is really where it's growing, is in the functionality. So give you an idea of the progress. So elements of the Web 3.0, what we have decentralized finance, we have decentralized exchanges, stable coins, reward tokens, the metaverse. All of these things make up the Web 3.0. But what's interesting about and I really could connect the smart contracts and NFTs to really this business world. And a lot of people think NFTs, they hear about the Bored Ape Yacht Club and things like that. That is really the beginning of something interesting. It is not where NFTs are going to go. That is all hype, and it's going to blow up, and those markets are going to crash, because in reality, the NFTs and the smart contracts are really where we can start integrating the real world into what we do. And examples of that would be, right now you don't have an ability to have your driver's license verified on a digital platform. But what if you could have a digital platform that was connected to your app that has maybe MetaMask on it, or one of these decentralized apps, we call those dApps, and you could have a driver's license that is connected to all the countries. And so you would have a smart contract that would be able to do that, and you would own that. No one could actually take that away. And that's really an important part of how people see Web 3.0 is the inability of governments to manipulate the future of systems that are out there. And when we talk about ownership, do you really own something? And that's really important. So in the multi-layer ecosystems, like give you an example. These are ecosystems for Ethereum. These are all different companies that are building on their what they would call layer 2 of Ethereum. This is Polygon's ecosystem. This is all of the apps and the dApps and the DeFis, NFTs, all the companies that are building on the Polygon platform. These are all the ones built on Tron, and these are all the ones built on Solana. There's a lot more of these coins out there that are even still have more ecosystems, and they need to be integrated. They need to be able to talk to each other. If we were going to talk about the Ethereum ecosystem as an example where there is more growth, If you can look at DeFi, you got a lot of DeFi happening, apps going here where people can use the Ethereum network. NFTs is a lot, but what you're going to see in the growth is in all the corporations and the governments, and even then they don't even talk about governments in here. So the future growth is going to be in those areas. And so really in that example of another person here, how can the lighting industry integrate this blockchain technology? And so I just listed some things I thought could happen. Supply chains, reward contracts, manufacturer tokens, agency tokens, automated contracts, and additional decentralized applications. So that's really where I wanted to take all of this. And I have a lot more thoughts on, I've started a coin on my own. I was going to call it, I started the app, secured the website. It's called Miat, MIAT.io, for Made in America token. And it was really geared towards trying to create a method where you create a smart contract so that if a specifier was to log into a dApp or an app on a phone and log in a specification, what ends up happening is that then whoever's representing that can then go and support that specifier and also log in and check into that same blockchain and add their name to that system. And then the manufacturer can then go into that ecosystem, see what's been specified and supported, and then they can then supply that particular product. And then when it goes to the job site, the contractor can then install it, take his phone, take a picture of the QR code, and it completes the process. And once it's done, then everyone could get a reward coin, or of whatever. So that's kind of an example of a blockchain application, just from a manufacturer standpoint, where manufacturer could support that, representative systems could support that, and you could start looking at all the vendors through that whole process and start to say, okay, how can and I'm just going to go back to that one page because I'm just going to leave it here if you guys don't mind. How does that work in the real world where you have competing agencies? Not only that, you have large groups like Acuity that may or may not want to be connected to another large group. I don't know that it really matters. It just depends on, if it's functional, how does it work? Can they participate in the process? And if you were to build an app like that could the large conglomerates could sign on to, yet keep their own information accessible. All those things have these layers of apps that are built into the system where people can start to build for. Right now, if you think about the example of analytics, when you have an ERP system, or you're running your social media, you can pull all this analytics out, but you're actually connected to the Google system. Well, in the decentralized world in Web 3.0, you will own your app and you will be able to pull that information out. And you would support that with proof of stake. You would keep your tokens in there, and the more you do that, the more people support that. So I think that's about 20 minutes worth of chatting and talking before in front of everybody. And I think I can start opening it up to questions and other people that want to speak on the subject. How was that, by the way?
Sarah Morgan, Nanolit Technologies. I really enjoyed that. It was an excellent synopsis. I'm aware of people trading in NFTs, creating NFTs, and then recently started trading in crypto. But the piece that really interests me is the ability to communicate with light fixtures at installation sites. And how do you see this playing a role in lighting as a service?
It's a good question. One of the things I can picture is instead of for example, a service where everyone has to build their own installation instructions or a warranty program, that could be built onto this decentralized system so that when someone takes a QR code off of a fixture, it automatically comes up and the data is available because it's been built on the blockchain. So they can say this fixture was actually built by this company, and then after that it was actually installed by this particular contractor on August 16th, 2025, and it was specified by by a lighting designer in Philadelphia. So to me, all of that information is hard to carry. And it's not something that one particular corporation or one particular group wants to manage. So it needs to be it needs to be automatic. It needs to be autonomous. It needs to be smart. So it does it automatically. So those things are going to happen automatic. They're already happening. People are building this infrastructure in their own corporations. So if you look at large manufacturers, they're using blockchain technology now, but it's a closed loop. They write the software and they build these systems so that they can make their corporation more effective. But it's opening up because there are people that have these skill sets that they can start applying this and allowing it to be used for outside of that closed loop. I'll give you an example. My father used to work for Homeland Security. He retired last year, and there was a set of technology that was owned by the Army that was basically an artificial intelligence. It was self-learning, but it was geared towards trying to, it was used for warfare, but it was a system on resources. And what they said is that this system can actually be used outside the Army. We can help a nation figure out how to build their own infrastructure and grow their country. So what if we took this technology, the software, and we got the rights to use it with our allies? And so my dad flew and spent a number of years in Croatia, and as a asset to the Croatian government, and used that software to help them gear them for the next 20 years. So those kinds of softwares that we see being developed for individual companies is going to be universal. It's going to be available on your phone. You're going to be able to figure out ways to do it. And by investing in certain apps and allowing yourself to be purchasing those things, you can pick the ones that fit your algorithm. So you might be able to say, okay, I want to evaluate and analyze. I want to analyze the data that comes in for my lighting company, for example. But I want to look at specifically where the locations are, and so you can pull that data out. And there might be people that will be able to write an app for that specifically. But you can take that same data and you can create a whole nother algorithm and produce analytics for the agencies, and they can log in and create a specific algorithm to find more information about it from that same data set. And so that data set's more. The goal of it is to be universal. It's to be free to everyone. In other words, it can't be controlled, and the goal is for it to be uncensored. But you're still you still need to be in the system and understand it. So I don't know if that helps.
No, that's really cool. So cool. You were mentioning earlier, rather than subscription model, you're just paying what you use. And do you see a future where people aren't buying lighting as hardware? They're buying it as by the usage.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's definitely models of people already trying to do that, where they're renting the lights out. I don't know where that goes, only in the sense that I think the future is. I mean, there's a push for everyone to not own anything, right? And I think there is a battleground there where people still want to own things, and you know, if someone's going to buy a light fixture for a space, I think they would like to own that. Especially since the technology of LEDs, they last so long, it's unbelievable. So, but from a, you know, I could see a market where this could be easily used for hospitality, for example. The hospitality market always is renovating. There's a 7-year cycle for every hotel, motel, resort on this planet. And so there's an annuity as far as work is concerned. And if a manufacturer was so inclined to develop a system where they could rent that lighting out for 7 years and then take it back and utilize parts of that, I don't know, or maybe it's part of that, maybe it's part of this subscription model where it gets recycled, and that money is recouped somewhere along the line. It's very possible, very possible.
Hi, this is Eric.
Hi, Eric.
Hi, I'm hoping I can just kind of throw some commentary in on that as well. I work for a lighting agency, so I'm a rep. I'm a controls guy, not much of a lighting guy, to be honest. But big interest in blockchain, and you know, for me, when I think about blockchain and tying it in with the lighting industry, I always ask a couple of questions about what is this going to actually provide in terms of value, and you know, when you look at blockchain, the whole sort of raison d'etre of the whole system is the fact that it is decentralized and that it is a root of trust. It eliminates the need to trust any one individual or entity. And so in order for there to actually be any value in having a blockchain solution in the lighting industry, we need to identify where there are some key issues of trust that are a problem. And in my mind, if I look at things, I see a couple of areas. I see on the software side as a manufacturer, when you want to deploy a fancy IoT lighting control system, as an end user, do you want your data to be hosted and owned by the manufacturer? And I would argue that just like an individual, no, you don't. You want to retain your privacy and ownership of all your data. You do not want to be the next, you know, victim of Google's mass data analytics and to be someone's puppet. And so in my mind, if you're going to develop a software solution, you need to do it in such a way that empowers the end user. And by empowering the end user to own their data with, you know, maybe with the DID standard, the digital ID standard, allow them to have that system where they can maybe not give up their data to the manufacturer, but yes, you know, service lighting as a service, meaning, okay, well, sure, I'll buy these analytics or whatnot on a pay-per-use basis, maybe using some decentralized AI algorithms that the manufacturers themselves don't have the power to develop in-house. And so they'll go out to, I don't know, like Singularity Net on the Cardano platform or whatever, and pay per use an AI to do the analytics on your software. But the manufacturer of the lighting control system effectively is the one that's selling you a solution that's been sort of put together for you and packaged in a way that they can present and take basically a commission off of it. And you know, to me that to me sounds like a practical application of blockchain. And then if you look on the side of the of lighting agents, you all the time see that lighting agents, although they have their different territories, there's oftentimes projects that are quoted cross territory, and then it's like, well, you know, who owns the project, who doesn't own the project, why are you quoting in the territory, why you know, that type of stuff. If you can put it on the blockchain and get your spec credit locked in for ownership, and have a sort of platform for the whole industry that's decentralized, but you can then lock in your spec credit, and the manufacturers then turn to this blockchain and say, okay, well, you know, agency XYZ registered for the spec credit. They're the ones that are gonna be getting the commission because they got their nose in it first.
Right.
Mhm.
No, I love that. I love that.
You know, I think if I could say something, so it's Anthony Galante with
Hi, Anthony.
Zola Interactive. Right, so we're a digital firm that does a lot of work with manufacturers, and I attend, you know, the ALA conference and the ARC conference and a lot of the conferences that get, you know, all the people in the industry together, and everybody sort of think tanks, you know, what are everyone's challenges on the manufacturing side, on the supply chain side, you know, all those issues. And one of the big, you know, outstanding elephants in the room that always comes up is industry-wide data. And, you know, retailers complain about it, e-tailers complain about it, manufacturers even complain about it. Now, you know, it's a very territorial group. Everybody thinks they have a secret sauce. Meanwhile, it's a cereal aisle. So it's kind of like all rice, oats, and wheat. It's just done in different boxes. But I think the need, if there was any sort of like starting point of where a need would be that would satisfy a niche in this industry, in the lighting industry, which is a little archaic, would be on a, you know, like a centralized data form of some sort,
Right.
where it wasn't competitive. It was sort of like, you know, what you know, Wayfair is using, what this one's using, what that one's using, you know, that like that centralized data, I think could be really helpful.
I could totally see that, and I could see where there's a standardization of, you know, like if you were to go to QR code and that what if you had a QR code lasered onto a fixture, and that QR code wouldn't just be the one QR code for the fixture. It could be just for the whole fixture, but every component in that fixture has a QR code. And when you pull up the driver, you pull up you take a, you know, look at the QR code for the fixture, it gets the driver information. That driver, you have the information on when it was manufactured, you know, how long the warranty's left, who you call, you know, all that's part of that smart contracts, right? So maybe there's a picture of the product and a link to a website, or you can buy another one. And not only that, but you can then connect that to the government industries or institutions like UL. So you can say, okay, when was this product UL listed, when it was installed, what kind of modifications were approved? And right now we don't have any way of doing that. I mean, we have people that can write pieces of paper down and you can fax it over and you can take a picture and send it to somebody, or JPEGs. But it's hard to know. One of the problems that we have in the current world today is what we have is what we don't know what's real. And by putting things onto the blockchain, if someone creates that blockchain, let's say a manufacturer creates something on the blockchain, that is information that they have that they put on there. They can show that it was provenable, that it was there. So if someone tries to edit their UL listing or edit their cut sheet, they can say, hey, proof that that's a fake narrative or a fake information. Here's the reality. This was the information that's tied to this product when that product was built. And I think
if somebody like the ALA or one of the organizations that was really noticed in the lighting world got involved, or even if you gave one of these lectures at one of these conferences and sort of, tested the temperature of where people are. I think there needs to be like a PG rated version. I think the whole blockchain thing it scares people. I'm not afraid of it. I think the democratizing of it also scares people. But, I think if there's sort of like a baby version of it, that showed, like, take Overstock, for instance, right? Their CEO was a very big crypto guy.
Who? I'm sorry, which one?
Overstock.com.
Okay.
He's no longer there, but
Right.
he sort of saw this coming in the e-com world and home decor, which I guess if we're talking about lighting, we're kind of talking about home decor at the same time. He was a big advocate of this. He's no longer there. He was kind of a radical guy. But you're going to see someone break through on this. Someone is going to do it. It's a matter of when, and it's a matter of how deep it could go. But I think it could be done in baby steps. That's just my opinion.
No, I agree. I agree. One of the reasons why I like the idea of the lighting industry doing such thing is that we're actually a pretty closed loop in as a construction industry portion, right? There's a lot of people, for better or for worse, no one even knows what the prices of things are, and I think you can still build a marketplace where people have control over those things. Again, it's democratic, but it's also, I think there's a lot of people that want to push these envelopes in the marketplace where they can sort of provide a service to everybody involved, because you want to help the distributors get their product and have more control over of when and where they're going to have things, and have more trust in that system. I think when you look at, if just one element is like you said, I think someone mentioned it, trust is a big problem here. Building an infrastructure that people can sort of buy into this trust system, that you don't have to worry about trusting the person that you're dealing with. The blockchain is providing that level, but it's such a big project. You need a lot of people involved to be able to do something like what we're trying to do. Anybody else?
So this is Cody Metcalf.
Hey, Cody.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep, heard you. Great.
Yeah. So I'm also a lighting agent. And as I say at specifiers offices, if you don't like lighting reps, I'm a musician. So, but we've talked a lot about upstream, up channel applications so far. But if you think about like the user experience and occupant comfort, like we've got a project right now that we're starting to develop, and it's a corporate owner, and they're building on an office space, so it's a tenant fit out, but they're not assigning any offices or desks to any employees. There's a locker system and a hoteling system. When you come in to work for the day, you might be assigned a desk in one corner of the office, and the next day you might be at a different spot. And the system kind of knows your schedule and knows who you're supposed to be collaborating with on any particular day. So my thought is, if your lighting preferences are carried on the blockchain in a system like that, along with other preferences for your workspace, that could be an interesting application. As well.
Yeah, that would be controls, right? You basically Crestron into that,
exactly.
Or Neutron.
Can I ask though why you would want that to be stored on a blockchain as opposed to stored on your phone? Like why does the blockchain need to know what your preferences are?
No, you're right. It could be on your phone if it's just a lighting thing, but as a bigger set of preferences of, mean, how you want your temperature, how you want anything in your particular workspace. You know, if that's something that corporate owner is opening up to their employees, and then it might also be across multiple campuses. You know, you might be working in one office one day, and then the next week you're in a different state, but your preferences all travel with you. And you're right, it could be on your phone.
I can see that part of and it's been talked about a lot in the at Light Fair and at various conferences, which was the Internet of Things, the IoT, where people are looking for services that they can do over the internet. And blockchain is interesting because it's really about what can you own, what do you own, and how do you protect that? And I think that's interesting. Interesting world that we're in, because blockchain isn't going to work for all kinds of ideas. So what kind of ideas do they work on? I don't know. I don't have any answers for that.
And then another question going back to the spec registration piece. I mean, that's all well and good, except for manufacturer agent contracts are still only good for 30 days. So there's that to contend with as well.
Yeah, and and it's going to live forever on the blockchain. So companies change all day long. So, but let's say you build some sort of blockchain, and that system has it's got all the information back to the beginning of time. You can pull up the original day that a company logs into the blockchain and creates its first block as a company on that chain. As that company changes or goes away, that it would also record along the blockchain when that company left that system. So, you're going to see blockchains being used all over the world for all kinds of things, just because it's going to be an easier way for proving things. Because, for example, let's say you own a house. Right now, I have a contract that has a title and a deed and all those things. I don't even know where it is. It's some sort of piece of paper that could burn up next time the garage catches on fire. Next time, it's never caught on fire. But that information could easily be on the blockchain. It's public information anyway, and there's all kinds of different blockchains. You can have you can have private blockchains. You've got Monero, you've got Zcash, you've got all these other things that are private. So taking the technology and making it private is also one of the elements in the people in the world of Web 3.0 and in the blockchain. They talk about trustless society. They talk about privacy, and they talk about decentralization, so that governments can't take over. So, for example, let's say you had a property that was next to a freeway that was trying to expand, and your property was you had proof of that property on a blockchain. There's no way that company that government could say, hey, you know what? You don't actually own that land. We're going to take it from you through I forget the term where people they just take your land and they build a casino there. I forget what it's called. But ultimately, you could
eminent domain.
Eminent domain. Governments use eminent domain all the time to do things, and if your property was on the blockchain, you would have proof that couldn't be edited by that government, and that could be a driver's license, that could be your phone bill, it could be the car that you own. Or even contracts that you own, a subscription service that you own could also be on the blockchain. So I'm just saying, there's going to be points where we want to be able to make a blockchain system that services a customer. Who's the customer? In this case, it could be the end user, it could be the rep, it could be a manufacturer, and trying to figure out what those things are. I would love to see a token system where everyone gets rewarded for a successful installation. So, you you log into the blockchain, you would log in maybe it's a project that's going to get built, and then all the fixtures you specify, you log into the blockchain so that when that specification works through its way through the market, distributors, manufacturers, contractor gets installed. Contractor says it's installed. The automatic contract is created and it's completed, the smart contract, and then everyone gets a token in the system based off their effort. And that can be an integrated system now today without overlaying income, where people still get paid their commissions and things like that. The manufacturers still get paid through Visa and credit cards. I'm just saying that would be the beginning, and then you start continuing to integrate that whole process so everyone gets paid as soon as something happens. I mean, it would be nice if the distributor or the agency got paid as soon as the fixture was delivered on site, right? The contractor brings it in, he uses a QR code, he goes, oh, I'm receiving these fixtures, and once that QR code hits the blockchain, it runs a bunch of the smart contracts, and then everyone gets paid that made that happen. So
I wanted to extrapolate on the issue related to trust given by the blockchain. So I sent a small word in the chat. I'm more into the event business, and I'm touching base with the rental part of the lighting industry. And actually what we're seeing, we have a big problem on the supply chain on all levels of trust between all elements of the supply chain in the event industry. And we see that with NFT ticketing and the traceability and the clear visibility on the incomes and so on, along with smart contract, we're able to create royalty schemes, profit sharing, and so on, that will allow, and because we have a ledger that has full of trust and traceability, allow the entire industry really to think different way to collaborate together. I think it can be extrapolated because you just pointed out the installation, direct payments, and so on. I think there is a way also to use this interesting aspect of immutability of the blockchain and the data within it, and the fact that you have a traceability of the transactions to maximize, the type of collaboration and to create trust between the different stakeholders. So it was a way to share things.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And I keep on, you keep on diving into these ideas, because people start saying something and you think, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Oh, I could also add on to this. You could actually build in the software into the driver so that when the driver fails, it's already connected to the blockchain because it's been logged in, and the driver self-evaluates and says, I need to be replaced, right? So it says, I'm failing, send a new one, and here's the contractor that installed it, here's the owner here's where it was installed and the address, send me a new driver, or send it to the contractor so he can install it. I mean, all these levels of automation is done because the blockchain holds that information forever. It doesn't cost anything to do that other than to maintain the system, and which is currently being done through proof of stake. All of that system is being held in the ether, so to speak, and so all these things happen automatically. You can continue to add information on there, like you just said, and the LEDs could start to fail, and you could build the software into the LEDs and go, hey, we're at 80% efficiency now. When we were originally installed, it was at 98%. Of course, LEDs degrade over time. It's time to replace. So again, I think the blockchains facilitates all of that, because how do you do that as a manufacturer where you want to build and you would like that feature, like if you were a manufacturer, you'd love that feature. A driver of a company, well, how do you manage that from a driver company standpoint? Because it's bigger than just the driver. It's the entire ecosystem that has to be integrated into that, so that system can work. And yeah, it's hard to
just to kind of again play sort of devil's advocate. Like don't get me wrong, I'm pro blockchain. I like it a lot, but what sort of value is there in publishing the specifics of a driver onto a blockchain when that data can just be reported to, say, a local server, which then can produce reports. And, you know,
would you trust that?
Why? Well, okay. Why would I not trust that?
Depends on how trusting you are, I guess. I mean, especially if it's 10 years old, or 5 years old.
Well, if the system, if the device is able to communicate and report its usage, or stop reporting its usage, a server on site that is connected to those devices would then still be able to log and note that what's going on. Like, to me, that doesn't sound, at least in my mind, like, oh, I shouldn't trust that software written by so-and-so. That's going to lie to me and tell me to replace these drivers all the time.
Yeah,
As a,
I see what you're saying.
I really always come back around to the big question of, okay, well, what is this? Where is the trust, and that we need, the trust problem that we need to get rid of? And to me, that trust problem, obviously, it lies with, potentially governments having control, potentially, you don't trust the manufacturers, perhaps, but it's all, you got to think of it from the end user's point of view, because the whole, again, reason for this, the existence of this stuff, is so that the end users don't have to trust anybody anymore, and that they're empowered. And so as manufacturers or people that are higher up the food chain in a particular industry, they have to learn to adapt and work within an ecosystem that perhaps curates content and services and products to a solution that is going to empower the trustless nature. And I think that's sort of the mindset that needs to be taken with these kinds of systems. So anything that's pro-privacy for the end user.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Anything that means that the customer doesn't have to trust anybody, that they can own their data, that they can know that they're not getting counterfeit products, that the manufacturers know that they're not getting counterfeit components, and that these parts and pieces are being perhaps sourced responsibly and whatnot, that it meets these kinds of standards. That to me is the real direction. And I fear that a lot of times that it's like a situation where, oh, let's build something and we'll call it decentralized, but really it's going to be some, organization that's just trying to make a lot of coin loop. And
yep. Yeah, another gatekeeper. Yeah, it's another gatekeeper information.
Yeah,
well,
it's like NFTs too. Like there's the guy who developed the app called Signal, a private messaging app with all this great encryption. He wrote a great article that explains the fallacies of these NFTs, how a lot of the NFTs are actually not truly decentralized, that you've got platforms out there that are actually controlling the ability to view and represent them. And so that's a big problem in the industry. NFTs are great in concept, but there's a lot of research and work that needs to be done before it's truly.
I would totally agree with you, and I think when we talk about the word gatekeepers, one of the things that I have recognized is that the number of gatekeepers has gotten bigger, right? I mean, we started with 2 or 3, Netscape, AOL, I forget the other ones, and then Google came along and they became a behemoth, right? And that's sort of the market speaking for itself. They throw more money into the system. They buy more companies because they need those the additional software and the additional technologies to continue to grow. And so you end up with these oligarchs or these giant monopolies, and they're controlling the system. And then you have this system of people coming in and going, hey, how can we get in there and compete against them? And it's really hard to do. And so what do you have to offer to compete against Google? Well, that is information you own. You own that information. If you buy an app that does that's connected to a blockchain for analytics, which people are developing this all the time right now, you own it. It's not controlled by Google. You get to control that. And NFTs may be what you would call decentralized right now, but it's also open source. And so it does have some gatekeepers, but doesn't prevent you from building more gates to get in there. And so if you provide a better wheel, a better interface, a better UI, connected to the metaverse, you connect it to Facebook, you connect it to Twitter, you connect it to, all these other things, there's more and more gates. And so there's always going to be these gates happening. What we want the ability to have that be democratic, where the best ideas win, and it can't be controlled by Google. Google can't take it over or shut it down or write some code and make it so they don't show up on the searches, things like that. And so when you have these giant gatekeepers that are controlling the information, you want a way to do that. And so this blockchain basically does that. And NFTs is really just a study right now. It's a study of how to do that. And all you're using is a picture and attaching it to a data file set. But that picture could be anything. That could be your driver's license. That could be your mortgage. That could be a lot of different things. Public information that is already public.
Certainly, yeah.
It's a good point.
And I think that when you look at the NFTs, that I think that I just gapped out on what I was going to say.
Yeah, it's interesting, the whole NFT world. My daughter's going into art right now, and she's going to go to KU Rock Chalk Jayhawk. If there's any KU people out there, and one of the things that I'm really encouraging her to do is to understand the NFT application for her future art, because we have an artist that he's a musician, and he's very much into blockchain, NFTs. And so he's starting to create his own music, and that can be built into the NFT network. And so we're going to buy some of his art through this network. But what I want to do is I want to see a collaboration where you're taking somebody's music and applying it over art, and you have these things. I think this is just the beginning of ideas. I don't think that NFTs as we see it today is anything like it's going to look like in 10 years from now. It is, it's just the beginning of something. And
yeah, I think too that the notion that the blockchain is going to create this sort of anarchic world where everybody just does whatever they want is a misnomer, because there's no way that KYC is going to go away, because KYC represents your reputation, and I think that is an often overlooked concept when you start diving into, well, what are these blockchain people all talking about? Because it sounds like they just want nobody to own up to the government, that the governments don't get any taxes and this and that. But really, that the KYC element is again not just applicable to individuals, but also applicable to companies and corporations.
Absolutely.
DAOs, and this future where these organizations can develop their reputation and have it digitally stored, like Trustpilot, right? We don't need necessarily Trustpilot if you've got yourself a digital ID as a company, and now everybody's having positive experiences with you as a company. So that's another angle that we could explore with within the lighting industry, of course, too.
And I can see where you use KYC as an element to, verifying your system. So let's say you have a company, you're building some sort of system that brings onboards companies onto this blockchain. And 10 years from now, all these companies are on there and they've got all this data, and that might include things that are bad, right? Let's say a manufacturer that builds drivers. And again, this isn't newsworthy because no one's going to go on the news and go, "Oh my gosh, there's a driver company that produced a batch of bad fixtures, bad drivers." But if from a standpoint of plugging this into the world of current news way, the people create news, is they will say, this restaurant, Chipotle, is producing a food that is making everybody sick, and then stock market for Chipotle crashes because the data that is the gatekeeper of somebody that wants to make Chipotle look bad just types a bunch of words in and says Chipotle is making a bunch of people sick, and they make information up like hundreds of people or people all over Texas is getting sick. Yet now you can go into the blockchain of Chipotle and the data is not controlled by Chipotle. It's controlled by a food service DApp, decentralized app that they decided to log into and be part of this network of information. And the number of people that were sick was 7. And it was a bad batch from a power outage because of a tornado that happened 10 miles away, and so people got sick. That information is very valuable. Now, does that information get put into a news article? Yes. Sometimes they add it at the very, very end of the article. They say, well, the information we got on this news article was created from a little town outside of Albuquerque. And 7 people died from the tornado, or people got sick because of the tornado that took out the power and made all refrigeration died. Forget about the headline. Forget about all the storyline. They covered their CYA, right? They did the CYA at the end and said, yeah, there only 7 people got sick, but the headline was a bunch of people got sick from Chipotle, and that caused a $5 million valuation change on the stock market because a headline came out. And so you could do the same thing for drivers. You could have all your lighting fixtures could have a failure or part of the failure, and someone say, "Oh, don't use MagTech drivers. They're horribly. They failed all over the place." Well, you can go and verify that information. That information might be available on the blockchain. And go, you know what? They had 7 of those. They had 7 buildings that went that had failed because of poor manufacturing, and the rate of success for these drivers is at 98%. So I'm not going to necessarily believe what someone who wants me to buy Menatite drivers instead of MagTech drivers. So I think that information, people are going to want to give that information to that blockchain, that the information that they want to give. And it may not be everything. It may be the things that are important. And it may be something that some governments may start to implement. And we're not talking about tomorrow. We're talking about 10 years from now, right? We're talking about government saying, you know what? I want all UL certifications on the blockchain. That's not an unreasonable thing, right? I mean, that would be the simplest level of your blockchain information where everyone adds that information. Now, UL may not like it, but they already don't like the fact that there's ETL and all these other companies that are competing against them. So they are trying to be a gatekeeper, and they shouldn't be. The information is there. There's ways to provide UL certification without using UL. And there shouldn't be a gatekeeper that dictates what gets that information. But you get it done, you should be able to have that.
Fruit,
you should own that. What's that?
Yeah, I would say that any of these sorts of legal contracts and supply chain tracking, like that to me sounds like the low-hanging fruit for this industry for sure.
And that's where it gets built on, because then you can start adding all the analytics, you can start adding all these different layers. But if you start building the system and the spine of this system is UL, for example, then all of a sudden you can start applying all these other things to it, because it's not owned by UL, right? It's owned by the blockchain, whoever is, it's democratic. Anyway, that was a good segue, or a good sidebar there. I like that. Nice work.
John, a small question. Do you think the cost of minting might affect the progress of the blockchain implementation?
For minting?
Yeah, I mean, in order to, the actual gas that is involved into creating a block and putting it in the chain, and sometimes the limitation that we have in terms of speed of processing and so on. Would it limit, you think, the development of Web3 in general?
I think again, if I go back to my presentation, if I just go back a couple of steps to this 90% thing here, let's see. All these companies are using different ways to use gas or not use gas.
I can tell you Cardano is cheap already.
Yeah, and so is Tron, and so is Polygon, and so is Solana. I think Ethereum is in the process of shifting itself from proof of work to proof of stake. It's going to drop in costs. The gas fees are going to go away. It's really they're trying to figure out ways to make that happen easily. Ethereum.
It's all a race to the bottom.
Right? It's going to be a race to the bottom for sure. As far as costs are concerned, for getting
competition things. You mean competition between different blockchain will by itself reduce the cost of
I think it's still an open market. I mean, it's still every ecosystem, so to speak, is trying to figure out ways to make themselves more efficient. And so when you build all these layer twos, I mean, the whole idea of the layer two is to make all these efficiencies, right? So all these DeFis, all of these auditors, this is not a good one here to look at. Let's just look at what you're going to end up doing is all of this additional work is going to be done off of these systems. And so you're going to end up, this is the market we're in right here. I don't know do you see my mouse when I move it around or no?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, so if you look at this and you say, this is the real world, this is everything that was created due to the fact that it's a new technology, it's software, it's integration, it's algorithms. All of this here is still in flux. This area, they don't even know what to do yet. They're just trying to figure out, and that's why they call it corporate testing. Like, how can we use it? So we're still here, and this is still moving. So I think gas fees is going to be it's going to be part of the system. It's a good way to keep the system funded, right? Because you want that system to be healthy, and so that you need a way to keep it funded. And so people that like the system use it, and then they pay to have that on. But again, if the gas fees become too high, you're going to find somebody that, and you see this on Cardano, is the secondary decentralized app that will do the work for you, and they'll do it in bigger blocks, and then they'll take that gas fee and charge you less for it. And so, I mean, and that's all being done automatic. There's so many smart contracts where people are buying, they're providing the gas fee and charging one step higher for the gas fee to make the transaction, and then actually doing the transaction at one level lower than the gas fee. And so they make the difference between the two gas fees, and that's their profit. So there's certain things that are happening in that world. I'm going to get this off my face. And it's going to get cheaper and cheaper just out of the nature of competition, which is the beauty of it, right? You as more and more things get on the blockchain, there's going to be more and more transactions. Right now,
and as the bridges get built between the chains too, it'll become more and more seamless. And there might be some preferred bridges that are bridges to multiple chains and whatnot. Maybe there's some opportunities there for companies.
There's some great bridges with Dot. Polkadot is a fantastic bridge application. BitTorrent is jumped into that technology a long time ago, which is to decentralize the information. So they have more information. They have more experience on it than anybody else, and now they have the Bitcoin or the BitTorrent chain, which is to make all of the chains connect to each other. So Solana connects to Avalanche, connects to Bitcoin, connects to Ethereum, so that all those things are automated. So yeah, that stuff is for the brainiacs. The people that do this, I can't even relate to. They're just so smart. But I get the idea, and I can follow it, and I can see good ideas in the world. One of the ones I love is Cardstack, because their focus, and I'm going to actually send a link to this. Cardstack is a company that wants to make it so easy for people to build software in the real world for governments and corporations and businesses, where they can pull and they can drag and drop things on their software system that have these decentralized applications, and they can sort of build their own stack of information. And so Cardstack is going to be critical for going into the real world, because finance and decentralized exchanges and all those things, they're oversaturated. There's too many people that are doing it already. Some of these people just need to die from not being able to compete, just because it's the nature of the free market. But it's been interesting. Anybody else? We're getting close to an hour at this point. It's 3:17 here, and if there's anybody else has any other questions, would anybody like to see some links sent to them after this? I actually have one more end of discussion poll if anybody has anything else to say. And I'm sorry, I was not using the chat. I can go through if there's any questions here. What if specifiers could receive royalties based on fixture usage? That's a question.
John, this is John Rucker.
Hey, John.
My friend. Light and Huddle. That was not a success. Let's just go. So that question, I think, is actually a really interesting segue into what could be an incredibly deep rabbit hole. And if we were to play the game of where would we actually see something like DAOs or anything decentralized or blockchain being used first in the lighting space. And I think that we hit on it quite a bit in the terms of warranty. I think warranty is a pain point for owners and for a lot of other people. If we had a good, accurate way of tracking warranty and true usage, it opens up a whole new space of secondhand lighting and all that jazz. But one thing that blows my mind that is with the large companies, with the major manufacturers, the conglomerates, I think they see this and they're fearful of it. And a very easy application that I would be surprised to see them not take on at some point in time is by easing the burden of new product introduction. And if manufacturers wanted to create a DAO, and either based on usage or purchasing, a DAO would actually allow for them to issue NFTs in the true basis of, true meaning of the word, not in the, JPEGs that you pay a lot of money for, but in just the true idea of a non-fungible token. that would allow people to actually have voting rights based on their usage on new product introduction. And they could either incorporate reward systems into that. I also think there's large opportunity for small manufacturers who are primarily represented by niche reps in small markets or any size market, but niche reps could band together and create a DAO that could actually create lighting solutions that benefit everyone equally. And ownership could actually be split amongst the agencies and have no threat of being bought out by the big boys, which is something that actually hits them on a regular basis.
Yeah, just so people understand what he's talking about, a DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization where decisions are made automatically through voting rights and through ownership. So yeah, I mean, there's so many fantastic elements to apply to the lighting market. DAOs are one of them, right? And how does that work? You know, and that's a totally different project. Like you said, it's unbelievable. My mind just keeps on blowing up every time you think, oh, here's another thing that could be applied to the lighting industry. And to me, the lighting industry itself is an industry. It's not hard to follow, and it's not hard to sort of get buy-in from all of these various people. And it's small enough, but it's robust enough. It's got, you know, the vendor world goes this way and the customer world goes this way. It's wide, but it's pretty thin, right? It's not complicated in the sense of, you know, maybe, you know, comparing to other things, trying to build buildings where you've got, you know, concrete and steel and wire and HVAC, and, you know, trying to do this in the construction world is you have to tackle one industry. And lighting has always been on this forefront of tackling technology. If you look at the way way buildings are being built right now, the biggest change has been lighting and controls. The HVAC systems have barely moved just because the technology has not moved very much. You know, we still use concrete to build our foundations. We still use steel. We still use brick. We still use wood, you know, and windows, and it's made out of glass, you know. So, you know, you can talk about innovation in those worlds, and I'm not going to say that it's not been innovated, but the amount of change that people had to deal with in the construction industry with the evolution of lighting, from burning things so you can see something, and then having to deal with the fire ratings of light fixtures because Chicago burns down. I'm telling you, half of this is, you know, just because of the technology moves so fast. We, as an industry, we are the first to jump on new technologies, and it seems only appropriate that we continue to do so here as well. Well, it looks like everybody's gone. Well, a lot of people have already left, and no one's speaking at this point. I don't hear anybody. Is anybody talking?
No.
Oh, there you go. Well, I think we can just say this is the end of the show and end of the discussion, and I appreciate everyone's input. And I will post this so everyone can start to see it and pass it around to each other and develop more ideas. And Riyadh, where are you at?
I am based in France now.
In France. Okay. Wow. Thank you for checking in. What time is it there?
Actually, I've been based mostly in the Middle East, so in Dubai and in Lebanon. But now I'm based in France, and I'm completely into the NFT blockchain and other disruptive, let's say, applications. I'm doing also an executive MBA in HEC in Paris.
Excellent.
So somehow I'm going to a new type of entrepreneurship.
Well, I appreciate you checking in with us and visiting from such a far distance. You're probably the person who's furthest away from us. So
yeah, actually LinkedIn posting worked well. Yeah. And it was a very interesting subject, and actually sharing, you know, as you said, we're not sleeping these days with having thousands of ideas in a minute, and yeah, so it helps to also understand how people see things, and actually we'll keep on connecting and trying to discuss different matters.
Well, I'm gonna wrap it up here, and thank you everybody for their participation and everybody who added to the conversation. I do have one more thing I forgot to send. I'm going to launch the end of discussion poll, and there's only a few people left. I don't know if everyone's going to. I should have sent that poll out earlier. It was just sort of a end of discussion, what people thought of it, and
was Riyadh or one person who has programmed in 3.0?
You're the one.
No,
I'm saying was Riyadh. Who is it? Who?
No, I'm not. I'm not. I'm not a programmer. No. No.
Riyadh, are you involved in lighting whatsoever, or was it just the crypto?
No, actually, lighting. I was dealing with lighting mostly as a client for lighting suppliers in the event industry. So this is what attracted me at first. Plus, I also have been a contractor. So I have been in Saudi Arabia and Dubai an MEP contractor. So I've done some things now in the Expo 2020 and before that some projects for the Louvre. But it's always event-related things, even that sometimes it's more semi-permanent. So I understand things related to protocols and different kind of listing and accreditations. It's an interesting subject. So somehow, yes, I did relate. And the fact that you're linking an industry to the blockchain is always interesting to see and understand how do you see it and see the possibility to extrapolate it to other applications. So it's always interesting to see how people think on a specific industry and to see how we can bring it to another one.
All right. Well, I think that was a good ending. Thanks for
Are you sharing a link of recording, or did you record this?
Oh yeah, it's definitely recorded, and I will send a link onto LinkedIn, and I will post it on my channel. So you'll get a bunch of ways to see that.
Thank you very much.
All right,
and keep us posted for next event.
No problem. Bye everybody.
Bye bye.
Thanks for setting this up, John.
Yep, no worries.